Hello, everyone. Oh, I overestimated the power of this microphone, but I'm going to ask you to calm down for a minute so I can grant you a very warm welcome here in Berlin, contrasting the cool temperatures we are experiencing not only outside but also inside today, as we are trying to keep the room aired. My name is Claudia Brüninghaus, or Claudia for all of you. I'm the guiding you through the program today, and I have the very great pleasure of welcoming you in person, which nowadays you have to announce as something very special. You have no idea how beautiful you look from up here, especially in this really nice background. And I also want to welcome everyone who's joining us digitally today on the live stream for the first half of the day. Welcome here. Very much more important than me as your host or maybe signpost today, I want to name the three institutions that are hosting this very first workshop on the All Goods Multi-Stakeholder Workshop on Circular Textiles, who are the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Berlin, who, in cooperation with the BMU, and I always have to read out the English title, because here in Berlin we are very used to abbreviating that ministry with BMU, which I'm going to do over the day, but for once, it's the Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, and I'm going to stick with BMU today, if you allow me to. And the workshop is supported by the German ecolabel, the Blauer Engel, so thanks a lot for these three institutions hosting this workshop, which is a very special opportunity for all of us to get together and share ideas on how to turn a mostly linear economy into a circular one. As I said, my name is Claudia Brüninghaus. I am a freelance moderator. I also work backstage with the Global Solutions Initiative, initiating conferences for the G20 and T20, and I'm also a mom of two, which I'm telling you, because you're probably gonna meet my newborn baby today, who's coming in for lunch, when all of you are having lunch. And we are very honored that this day is opened by our host, His Excellency Ronald Van Roeden, the Dutch ambassador in Berlin, and I'm gonna leave this small but very beautiful floor to you for now. Very welcome and thank you, Your Excellency. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and welcome to this fourth All Goods event here in Berlin. And I'd like to address a special welcome to our partners at the General BMU, Federal Ministry for the Environment, Herr Jaeckel und Herr Sturbe, und natürlich auch der Colleagues, Herr Scholz und Frau Zietloff from Blauer Engel. So welcome to this meeting, and thank you also for your continuous support in bringing Dutch and German stakeholders together in the field of circular textiles. To me, it's a kind of surprise that this is going to take place in English, because I have been accustomed to speaking German here, but of course when you bring together people from different countries, even Netherlands and Germany, which are so close, then, well, then English is the lingua franca, even though United Kingdom has left Europe. So, but that's how it is. But without your support, this meeting would not have been possible today. So, what does All Goods mean? The All Goods program is an initiative by the Embassy of the Netherlands in Berlin, and it wants to establish a platform for change makers, for innovators, decision makers like yourself, to exchange on topics like circular design, fashion, architecture, as these goods shape our day-to-day lives. And today the focus is on the fashion industry. And I had a look at who is joining today, and I think it's quite an impressive list if you look into the expertise that you together represent. So hopefully something very productive and useful comes out of this meeting. At least that is my expectation. It's only 5 months ago that we hosted the royal couple visiting Germany. It was not the first time they visited. They have been visiting all the Länder in the past 7 years, but this was the royal state visit. And I think during the visit we introduced them also to some of the most promising young designers in the field of circular fashion. And we believe that the young generation holds many innovative ideas to come to a future circular economy. And that's why it's so important to address this topic. And I think the Netherlands, I just had a brief discussion, are we a front runner or not in the field of circular economy? We very much believe we are, and that's also, we very much want others to believe that we are. At least I witnessed My previous experience was in Brussels, where I was Ambassador Carper 1 and dealing very much with issues of circular economy. And at least there we had a minister, State Secretary Stientje van Veldhoven, who was extremely active in the field, also in bringing stakeholders together and trying also to convince Brussels, the Brussels machinery, to really deal with this issue and make it an important topic, making it a priority. And of course, this is very important because you need new instruments at the European level. And this goes from legislation regarding the definition of waste or primary products, because if you look into the internal market that Europe is, then of course there are different rules that apply to waste, the transport or trade in waste, or the trade and transport of primary materials. And so it's very important to define when does waste stop to be waste, and when does it become a primary resource, a new material. And of course, this is where you need European legislation. So that's one thing. I think on the other side, you also need funds. You need programs to stimulate innovation. You need, because mostly also we are dealing with startups. At best, we are dealing with scale-ups. So you also need access to venture capital. And I believe, it's my sincere belief, we can only do this at the European level, because we are talking about a sector that is dominated by very large players at a global scale. So I think it has to start somewhere. And therefore, just cooperation between the Netherlands and Germany is very important, but not just from a perspective of our bilateral relation, which is very dense, very intensive, but also with a view to how are we going to influence decision makers across Europe. And how are we going to influence influence decision makers in Brussels to take the right decisions in that respect. With regards to textile and fashion, in the Netherlands, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Watermanagement has launched a policy program which aims to use at least 30% recycled material in new clothing by 2030, and then to have halved the environmental footprint of the textile sector, and that should be arrived at in 2035. And also in 2035, we have the aim that 50% of raw materials and products sold on Dutch textile market are recycled after collection if immediate reuse is no longer possible. And finally, in 2050, we aim to have a fully circular economy in all sectors, including the textile and fashion sector. And of course, this comes also, in that respect, this meeting comes at the right point in time, because both in the Netherlands and Germany, we're currently forming a new government. And I'm pretty sure that in Germany, somewhere in the second week of December, that there will be a new government. I'm praying that this will also be the case in the Netherlands. And there was some optimist sign signal yesterday that they aim to have a new government any time but before Christmas, by Christmas. So this will be a very nice Christmas present. And I hope that this will also give a new stimulus to enhance cooperation. But of course, with the aim of sustainable use, reuse of textile and other materials, this policy program would contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. And it's also good to know, I think, that consumers, and especially young consumers, are increasingly aware of the importance of this. Well, in the process of writing the policy program, we were, of course, in close contact with sector representatives, and many of them are present also here this morning. So the next step is, of course, international consultation like today's workshop. And there again, I believe that the Brussels Forum is very important. And in the Netherlands, this consultation has, among others, resulted into a denim deal, an agreement between government and industry to cut back the use of raw materials. And I'm sure that colleagues from The Hague today will elaborate on that a bit further later on. Now, even though this national program is ambitious, as I said, we need other member states to really have an impact. And Germany's role in the textile industry is a big one, because you are a big producer, but you are also a big consuming country. And we value, of course, the important role of the federal government and the several lenders. They also play a role in this regard. And it's also good to know we have today in the embassy, we have a meeting with our honorary consuls from all across Germany. So this is also a topic we will bring to their attention, because they are many of them are also representatives from industry and service sectors all across Germany, and some very traditional sectors, but some also very innovative sectors. It's you, business, government representatives, who have the power and the outreach to really have this impact. And this is why I'm very delighted to welcome you all here today. Because only with the industry, policymakers like ourselves can implement realistic, fitting rules and regulations. And I very much hope that the workshops of today lead to new insights, to new connections, because it's also very important that we have this meeting, that it's being possible to have physical meetings again, and I very much hope that that will remain to be the case after a 1.5 year corona epidemic. So we know it's a bit unsettling what's happening right now all across Europe, but I very much I believe that these meetings and also the informal exchange and the possibility to create new networks are extremely important. And that's why it's so good that we have this meeting here today. And hopefully it will contribute to forming a multi-stakeholder community between public and private stakeholders. And our embassy will keep this community updated and informed in the coming months. And we will remain committed also to give a proper follow-up to what's going on today. So the first expected milestone in that regard is the presentation of the EU textile strategy. And I already referred to the importance of Brussels in the whole machinery. And this strategy will be presented in the first quarter of next year. And it touches exactly upon the themes that are being discussed here today. And the outcomes of today's workshops will also be documented and shared with our colleagues at the European Commission. And I think it's also good also to properly brief our delegations in Brussels. But also stakeholders, because I saw also stakeholders, they are pretty well organized in Brussels, and it's also very important to maintain the contact, get in touch with them. And I also know from my own experience in Brussels that in the Commission, also, let's say, the people working there, they are looking for concrete examples and concrete initiatives, because they don't just develop legislation out of the blue. They want it to be based in reality. And I think that's also why it's so important to trying to influence that strategy right from the beginning and not just wait till it's being presented, because then often we have missed an opportunity to influence that process. So this being said, I'd like to thank you once again, and I'd like to thank our good partner Squedge for facilitating the workshops today. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a wonderful exchange and good luck, and hope that the good weather will continue all during the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Van Roeden, for your introduction, for the inspiration, and we're going to have you stick around for a little while, and then we'll have to let you go into very busy days with a lot of consuls, I heard now. So let me give all of you a heads up on what to expect today, or maybe rather about what we expect from you today. This day has two parts. We're going to start out with some more pieces of inspiration with very nice and interesting speakers we have here, with some parts where you have to be active. And that's going to be before 12. Afterwards, we're going to have a little break and then step into the workshops we just heard about. We're going to introduce them later on. So I want to emphasize two goals you just sketched, Ambassador. One is harmonizing the private and the public sector in their roadmaps towards a circular textile industry. These are big words, and I very much hope we're going to see all of you fill these with life today. And I want to encourage everyone who hasn't yet to have a close look at the participants list, also you in the live stream. Please check out who's here today, because that's really impressive, and I was happy to see all of you walk in and be in contact right away. Please keep doing so, because there are no spectators today. Even for you at home, we're going to point out the contact of our colleagues, Reis and everyone else, later on, so you can be in touch and share your ideas with us later on today. And all of you aren't spectators, you're all expected to be active in exchange here. I'm pretty much more of a housekeeper, so let me say a few practical things. First of all, there's our colleague Matthias, who's back there with his camera. There he is. He's going to be accompanying us today, shooting some images for documentation, also sounds during the first part of the day, but not during the second part of the day. So please feel free to speak off the record if you want to. Also, if for any reason you don't want to be in the images, please turn directly towards me or Matthias, so we're going to find ways on how to exclude you from the video footage too. Secondly, quit smoking, but if you can't, please go outside to smoke. Be kind enough to use the beautiful terrace to do so. And sorry for the temperatures, but obviously to keep everyone safe and sound today, we're going to keep the room aired well. The wardrobes, to get your coats back, are either downstairs on the ground floor or back there. So please also in that regard, stay healthy. We pointed out a 2G event today, so everyone here should be either vaccinated or recovered from COVID, but still, if you feel uncomfortable for any reason by having people close to you, please just feel free to say that. I think pretty much everyone's used to having people keep different distances today, so please talk to each other about that too. One last practical thing before I announce our second speakers is that we're going to have a gathered Q&A with everyone. We didn't want to interrupt every inspirations and keynotes by Q&As in between, but please take notes mentally or in writing so you're ready to pass a short half hour before we go into the lunch break to have Q&A and exchange ideas here already. So, but without further ado, I want to introduce two speakers, or 1.5 speakers maybe. The first I want to introduce to you is Max Gilgenmann, and I'm going to come here already, so I can talk about you. Let me just say one quick thing about Max. So Max, first of all, he's responsible for the small exhibition you see back there. Please be ready to ask him about it, because it doesn't look like an exhibition, but like a wardrobe, but it isn't. It's really a gathering of very interesting pieces who are examples for the textile industry and what it can do. That's what Max is doing, but not only. He's also co-founder and director of the studio MM04. And he's going to be later joined by Tekla Wilkening, who's back there for now. Tekla is a consultant and author of one of my favorite titles this year, Das Bio-Pizza-Dilemma, and she's going to be joining Max on stage later on. And so let's hear it about circularity for positive futures. That's what you're going to fill with life. Max, please do your magic.
Thanks a lot. It's quite an honor to be here today. I'm really happy to see all these kind of faces. I have a few familiar faces in front of me, but also a lot non-familiar, and that also makes me always happy to see like the wide range of people that nowadays really look into these topics. So that's really cool. And yeah, I'm here today to talk about circularity. I'm dressed circular, more or less, one can discuss that, but like the top is quite circular, certified circular even, and then the bottom has kind of different aspects about that. That's something we can also talk about in our little wardrobe and exhibition there. Also, if you want to pimp up your outfit spontaneously, we have some things to be rented there. So that is also part of circularity, obviously. Things that are not circular designed maybe, well, in different business models, you can make them a bit more circular, at least, than they were before. And that's also why I want to not just talk about circularity, but about circularity and positive futures. I'm here to inspire you today a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is kind of have a little recap on what happened, what is circularity at the moment, what will it be in the near future. This we're going to do by having like 3 perspectives. That's something we developed over the last couple of years, always trying to look at every hurdle, but also at every kind of vision or future that we want to build from 3 different perspectives. And it's the perspective from the product level. So that's still, if you talk about fashion, the raison d'être, why we kind of, well, we talk about the fashion industry, because there's products. Then there is the economy, which is kind of the ecosystems, how they work together. We have a lot of things that needs to be organized to make this happen, to have fashion readily available like we have to do today. And then there's the aspect of culture, actually, what gives like an overall kind of ecosystem to it, but also more than that, it's kind of how we do things in our everyday life, how we do things at our work. So work culture, everyday life culture is very important, I believe, and is one of these key elements that I want to talk about also to make circularity happen, actually. So just to quickly look into the recap, like where we're standing, and maybe to kind of give you, open up your minds again just to what we can all talk about today, or what we should all think about when we look into circularity and sustainability in a general way. So I'm sure you kind of know this quote, or like at least the content. It's very simple, straightforward. I would just like to highlight, as good as it is already, we obviously still need to think also about like renewable resources, energy, the sustainable water supply, all these things that are on the sides, and we need the logistics to make all of this happen, and also the business models to make it happen. You are very familiar, I'm sure, with these kind of images, the two known passes or cycles. If we look into circularity, obviously we start with the material and then we end up at the material again. That's the vision. But there's also this third element, the consumption, really. People normally talk about it as a conscious consumption nowadays, or there's other buzzwords. I would like to highlight, if we look into this cultural aspect also, let's be real. It's not about consumption anymore. It is about use already. If you talk about fashion, there is no consuming the fashion to an end. We are using it, and then we're disposing it, or we're giving it to other people. But the last part is not so organized. We just kind of, but we've gone from consuming them really and repairing them to an end more or less, and then getting rid of them to a whole different kind of way. And that's the reality of culture that we're living in. And that's what we need to kind of think about when we design for the future, and we think about the legislation and the systems that we need in the future. If we're looking into production, I'm sure you know most of this. Product design obviously is a very important part. Nowadays one says like that up to 80% of the footprint of the product is done and is kind of responsible by the product, by the design phase. Then material sourcing, obviously, I'm sure you're all aware of it. Logistics, that's one of these really key areas, because if we want to change the infrastructures, we need to really change some things dramatically and invest also. I'm sure this is one of the most strugglesome parts. Business models, this is where some of the biggest opportunities lie in, actually, which I think in the last 2-3 years, there come really interesting kind of new models, and there's more and more trials in different ways how to actually bring fashion to the consumer and also get it back, maybe. Value chain partnerships, obviously, I think in general we already heard it today, that it's very important to look into partnerships, and that's also hopefully the reason why you're all here. So very happy to see you here again. And then something that sometimes is forgotten a little bit, we said today already, the second part here is completely off the record, which is very important as a communication tool, but also the other side, to the external side, we need to get people to understand what is the future and bring them positive visions of the future. Like, why should we look into circularity? Is that better than what I have now? Why could it be nice? And then I'm coming back to like the outfit element. We need the fashion marketing aspect of this to sell it, to kind of make people happy about it. And I mean, think about yourselves. You're also consumers and citizens yourself. Like, how would you like to dress yourself in the future? And I mean, these kind of simple questions, I think I would like to remind you of, that we all are in this position, and so we all can have a solid kind of opinion on how a great future could look like. Yeah, so that's the components. So a bit of a different vision, maybe a bit more romantical in a way, from one of my most favorite kind of recycling pioneers, Stephen Bessel. He really is totally looking into recycling. He has built this global recycling chain, supply chains or value chains, like I like to prefer this term. And he then also went into upcycling, made that a serial process. And then he now works with Renewcell, and he's really trying to kind of squeeze the last little bit out of the existing value chain. He's working with like the old system, but he's really optimizing it to the last little bits. And yeah, he is a very passionate person, and that's kind of his vision. If we look into how to build visions, I think there's 3 really important pillars. 2 of them, I believe we are already touching pretty well, designing out waste and pollution. I'm pretty sure this is common sense here, that's a good idea and one of the goals. Keeping materials in use is one of these very simple ways. Yeah, sure, that will make the footprint better, maybe not circular yet, but definitely very important thing that one can do immediately in many ways. And what I would like to kind of highlight is, but we also need to look into the future really, and look into regenerating what kind of we have used and destroyed to a certain degree. And so there's more than just kind of what is now and what is circularity, how we can get to a zero waste level. Actually, we need to look further than that. And if we talk about futures, it makes sense to also have that future in mind and have that as a positive scenario and not just think about all the horrible scenarios that we can have as people are discussing life just a few kilometers up north, somewhere there. Well, if you look into fashion specifically, if you look onto these things, the two really main passes we have is like, well, if we use circularity, then it makes sense for a short use kind of product to make it compostable. If you use circularity for like a long life kind of product that people want to wear a few times, then probably the recycling or the technical recycling is the better kind of approach. I already highlighted how important design is. There is a few different design techniques that are being applied like every day nowadays, especially if you look into the young generation. It's kind of, for them, it's natural to design differently nowadays. Design for circularity, we have a few examples obviously over there. Arnoud is also present here today. I think at least one of the companies that is already looking very seriously into that with their t-shirt and denim. But also there's upcycling, which is becoming really an important part of the fashion industry, which is bringing kind of new vibes to the fashion industry. It used to be very DIY and my kind of also maybe a little bit alternative niche, but it's becoming mainstream, and there's many players that have been working on that for a long time. I'm sure you know Freitag or possibly also Christopher Rayburn, who's doing big collaborations also with Timberland, for example, and working on very sustainable products there. But also the new generation of designers from all over Europe, as I know, they are really, for them, upcycling is one of these totally non-brainers to do, and they are bringing this also to the industry, obviously. Then there's other ones that are still not that kind of relevant, but I'm still trying. I just wanted to mention them here. Obviously, you can have modular designs, where it's basically also a form of kind of designing for assembly or for designing for change, if you want. So, and there's obviously this kind of work on the patterns. So zero waste design is a very old idea, but it's kind of digitized nowadays. You have like really different possibilities with that. Obviously, also with knitwear, you can do zero waste very easily and very creatively. And minimal waste is kind of, well, the softer version of that, but also becoming more and more kind of available on the mainstream market. Certifications, obviously a very important topic if we talk about products. How can you verify what you're claiming about your product, because the product itself looks like, well, most of the other products, unless maybe it's upcycled in a special way. So certifications are very important, also as a guidance, obviously, on the market. And yeah, we will hear more a little bit about at least one of these certifications. I'm very happy to hear that Blauer Engel is looking into circularity, because if you look at this selection, which obviously is not all of them existing, but already a bit confusing, but only one of them is really specific on cradle to cradle so far, which is astonishing since already we have two on upcycling, Upmade, and SGS is also doing one. But yeah, so certification is definitely a very important topic still and will continue to be, but also something that needs consultation itself, because, I mean, as you can see, who would know really immediately which one to take and why, how they work together maybe, how holistic are they, etc. Yeah, this brings me to kind of halfway of my little inspirational speech here. What are the biggest challenges of our current vision of circularity? Well, the answer is yours. So I'm leaving it with you for the moment, and maybe to take it with you for the workshops later. That's obviously nothing to answer as quickly as I would have to now. So I'm sorry, but that's part of the inspiration now. Circular economy. That's kind of, as I said, like this, the second perspective that we always take. I would like to highlight, well, we need to look beyond cradle to cradle, really. If we look into business models, one of the most important parts is to kind of do reverse thinking, look into reverse supply chains, look into how to recover really our resources that are already there. This is one of the main kind of business model thinkings, I would say, that is happening also in the area of startups and where accelerating programs are helping to bring them to the market now, step by step. There's obviously many more areas in business models where people are innovating. I'm really interested in the rental and repair and swapping area. I think this is one kind of complex where quite pragmatically there's change happening, a lot of players trying out platforms. Digitization is helping a lot to bring this to the market. A few years ago, secondhand, nobody thought this would work on an online shop. but nowadays, well, everybody's using it, at least in the younger generations, and so we can see this change happening already, and really there's some interesting stuff going on there. Also, not to forget, virtual fashion at the end of the day, totally new field for the whole fashion industry. We don't really know what is happening there yet. The gaming industry has basically invented this, making billions of dollars already with virtual clothing every year. And the fashion industry is just starting to tap into that, which obviously also brings like a whole different level of thinking about products again, because then they are not so tangible anymore, but they have one function that is very fashionable. You can kind of present yourself, at least in a 2D scenario, or nowadays also in 3D scenarios, as good as you could in real. So a very, very interesting field for the next couple of years. Then, as I said, please, really, you need to think about logistics, obviously. That's one of these really key baseline layers. I mean, without the right logistics, we will never be able to do what it takes for the next couple of years to make this planet and keep this planet such a nice home for all of us. Guidance and communication, maybe as I mentioned before, like with all these certifications that are guidance itself, but you need guidance to look into certifications already nowadays because there's so much complexity. And then there's other platforms, obviously. Fashion for Good, I'm sure you're all familiar with them. They have done such an amazing job over the last couple of years, really brought a new dynamic into the industry worldwide. I mean, they're expanding further to Southeast Asia and such a successful program that is based in Amsterdam. And also heavily co-funded by the Laudes Foundation, the ex-C&A Foundation. So very interesting to see the industry already cooperating deeply in there. Circular Fashion, one of our kind of more homegrown products here. Also, we have a representative from them here today. I'm sure you're also familiar with them. They have been having a huge impact, been training design teams like from so many companies. And this kind of work is so important, and it has already such an impact. And yeah, there's so much kind of guidance around already. So actually, I think there is enough knowledge. We need to apply it now, really. Yeah, there's things like the 9R model. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's kind of, just bringing it as to show like the levels of complexity. I mean, 3Rs was the model, but if you look into the details, oh, well, actually 9Rs are maybe more the thing that hits it, where really what some people thought of, oh yeah, it's great to recycle, but that's the highest footprint in this kind of scenario. And the goal kind of is refuse, and that's the lowest footprint, obviously. Just to kind of put things into perspective and how to look into the future, really, like, okay, what needs to be our ambition, and why should it be high? If you look into circularity, sustainability, obviously we have to really be open-minded and think about all these different elements and frameworks that are out there already and see how we can bring them together over the next couple of years. SDGs were mentioned already, the goal 12, obviously very important, I agree, but I wanted to highlight goal 17, which for me is the baseline for all the other goals, partnership. Otherwise, it will be impossible to reach it. Also, I want to highlight, if you look into circularity, sustainability, the human and labor rights, obviously, it continues to be a very important part. If we don't bring those people that work in the industry to be part of the solution, then it's not going to work well. So there is such an powerful resource also, and we need to look more into these kind of aspects. Also, if we talk about circularity, and we talk about these things very technical normally, so these social aspects and cultural aspects, we need to not forget them and like kind of remember that we're all part of this also, and that we also are consumers and citizens ourselves. Transparency, obviously, also one of these big enablers of sustainability and circularity. Positive impact. That's what I want to highlight again. We need to look into this. We are looking into kind of zero approaches. We are looking into kind of how to compensate kind of CO2 and methane and all these other things. But yeah, as Michael Braungart is always stressing, less bad is not good enough. So there, if you look into the future, really, we also need to look into how to regenerate, how to use different kind of systems, how to empower the people that can really help us making this. And at the end of the day, that's also especially the workforces in the companies, I believe. So this is really my invitation to you to dare to think positive about the future. I know, obviously, if one looks into the scenarios, it's sometimes difficult, but at the same time, it's so needed. We need to be aware of the dangerous scenarios, but we need to create the positive scenarios to really make it happen and to take the people with us, especially in the companies, I believe, talking to all of you corporate representatives. If you don't do your internal communication right, I believe, then also how can your company change? How can you change your company culture and really make circularity part of everyday's life of your employees that will also bring it to their families, etc. So I think this is still like an underestimated area. There's new players in the market, like a famous singer, which maybe also in the Netherlands is quite known still because of the Eurovision Song Contest, Lena Meyer-Landrut. She has just brought out a collection with a massively commercial player, About You, which is focusing on circularity, and they have this interesting approach. I mean, disclaimer, we are consulting them, so I can talk about it a bit more in detail at some point. But they are taking the approach not to start with designing for circularity, but to work with their community on what are circular models, how will they want to consume circular in the future. And I think this is a really good approach. They're not doing anything kind of super good yet at the moment. They have the baseline, like organic cotton, tencel, and fair production in Europe. That's the sustainable baseline from my point of view, but they're really looking into engagement with the community, and that's super interesting. I think that's one of these ways forward. And the people that she's talking to, obviously they're quite young, and they are really open for like positive futures. They really want these visions. They want to know why should they change, how should they consume, and they're very open still. They are happy to consume differently if you give them a really positive image of how you can do that. So what I want to finish with is the passion that we need, that I hope you are all bringing here. I'm sure, I mean, the motivation level is high in this room, so I'm very happy about that. Yeah, we need to bring things together, like circular systems, social initiatives. Together, there's the strength that really kind of brings us forward. And I know we are living in a time when, like, political correctness is already sometimes even a hurdle to talk about things because there's so much awareness and consciousness in the societies, which is a good process, but also a complicated process at the moment. But I think in rooms like this, especially if we are in the working groups later and can talk off the record, then this is an opportunity to kind of overcome these hurdles and really together look into a more positive future. And that needs to include the cultural shift, I believe. Because where will this change happen? Internally, in the industry, that's the workplace culture that we need to change. We need to look into the consumption culture, like how do we all every day consume, and how could we change it? What is the most realistic ways? What is maybe anyway annoying at the moment, and we can easily change because we can make it better if it's more sustainable even. These things of sorts, I think, are very important to kind of have in the back of your mind. Then I'm sure local communities of practice will be one of these key elements. You don't kind of convince the whole world at once that this is the best idea, but in kind of from like local ecosystems, you can grow things quite easily. And I mean, obviously that's the reason why there's so many pop-up events, pop-up shops in the last couple of years. You can try in like little real laboren, I'm not sure what's the English term, real laboratories in the real life. You can try these things and really kind of be better prepared to roll things out in a bigger scale. And then obviously individual action, I think the responsibility on the individuals is way too high. I put the responsibility on you guys, corporates, policymakers. That's for me where the responsibility really lies. But we're all individuals at the end. So obviously we're all also responsible for our own life. And at the end, that's where the important change will happen. And that's why we need the culture. We need to kind of get everybody involved. So yeah, I think there's many change agents, but this is kind of a few that I find at the moment very important. Policymakers, like we have a lot of them here today. Platforms, especially also digital platforms. I mean, don't underestimate the power. I know it's also not easy, and sometimes one thinks, oh, blockchain, it's all just like buzzwords. And it is, but at the same time, there is so much potential in there if we kind of really apply them in the right way. Also, artificial intelligence will help us so much in the next couple of years to make some things possible that we thought were not possible yet. So we do need to believe also in innovation, I'm sure, and also in technology innovation. And this is something where I think both the representatives from these both countries are very good. There's a lot of these innovations happening, and that's a good baseline for leading the way also in Europe. And well, at the end, the change agents are you. For today, at least, I have a really high kind of hope that this is going to work out, that you're bringing kind of a step further for all of us, and that's kind of how I'm ending. But I would like to very briefly ask Tekla also to the stage because we have prepared a little extra interactive element that maybe you can explain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael?
I think that was amazing. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. And to finalize this inspirational little thing, we designed a quiz. It's a mix of facts and it's a mix of a mood, because we really want to know, where are you at? What's the attitude you have towards all of these concepts we introduced? And so we would highly recommend you to take part. Everyone can just scan this QR code now or later. We have several points where you can find it to take part. And I will also welcome you in the lunch break in our exhibition, where we can catch up. And yeah, like I said, it would be great if you take part and gave us a little look into how you feel about circularity. Thank you.
I'm here in Berlin to meet several people within the government, but also within the industry here in Germany, because I have the feeling we are working in the Netherlands on circular textiles, and we are just in the beginning of the process towards a circular textiles economy, we need all brains in the world to change our system, our linear system of circular economy, towards a circular one. And I think here today a lot of innovative brains are here. I think we just had some lovely discussions about the complexities, but also about the solutions, and I think there we have to go.
Well, I'm here today because I love to get the inspiration from different perspectives. I'm working with the global fashion industry towards a circular economy, towards a more sustainable approach, and it is just wonderful to get different perspectives, so from a policy side, from small company side, from big companies, and I think you managed quite well to bring all of those perspectives here. And I believe we need regulation in a highly unregulated industry to move us sort of towards a more circular economy.
Yes, the positive vision of the future is that that all industry, although they lack incentive to change, they are aware that they have to change. The world is on the brink of a lot of planetary crises, climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and people get aware that they have to change. And also the industry has to change, but the problem for them is how, and how to escape from the linear economy. I'm very positive in that we can change together, but they have to get the perspectives to what options are there. And they have to look at small enterprises, small startups with great ideas about what is possible already, with new materials, with new concepts of business, with how to align again with their consumers, with their customers. I think there are a lot of opportunities to engage between producers, retailers, and consumers as well. Happy to facilitate that process as a government.
So now we are curious to hear it from the BMU I was talking about before, and consequently I'm happy to introduce Ulf Jaeckel to you, and I'm going to have to read out your position because it's a very long one in English and I don't want to mess that up. You're Head of Division of Sustainable Consumption and Product-Related Environmental Protection, and this is the official part, and I'm going to hand one of the microphones, you can choose one, over to you. Please give it to Mr. Ulf Jaeckel. Very warm welcome.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome you here in this presence meeting. Let me also start by thanking in particular our Dutch colleagues who took the initiative to talk with us on sustainable textiles, sustainability in textiles, and kept the the cooperation also through the pandemic times. That was a great pleasure, and we are very grateful for that, and happy to continue this cooperation. Let me also thank the embassy for organizing that sketch, for organizing that, and also my colleagues from the ministry and the federal agency for organizing that. I think in pandemic times it's quite difficult to do that. What I want to do today is give you some insights on our thinking, what we would like to see as a frame for sustainability in the textile sector. These examples shown by Max Gilgenmann, they are very good examples, but they are, of course, still in a niche. And it's not the case that the ones acting more sustainably are rewarded by the market so far. And of course, it's our aim and our also obligation to set a frame which benefits the ones acting more sustainably, to have a level playing field which is higher and which is good enough that this will happen. Because the textile sector is not a very regulated one, as you all know. It's more like a Wild West we have seen in the last decades. And that has led to massive impacts on environment and in the social area. And these impacts are also standing in the way of achieving our goals in sustainability sector, be it in the climate sector, be it in the biodiversity sector, the resource use, or the sustainability goals as shown here. It's an important sector also on a global scale, and therefore we are very lucky that the European Commission is addressing this sector, or will address this sector, planning to address this sector in a textile strategy. It's an urgent matter, and therefore 11 ministers from European countries, 10 of them from the EU, and including the two host countries here, and representing quite a significant share, I think more than half of the consumers in European Union, have addressed the Commission in laying out what they want to see in that textile strategy. And there I want to go a little bit into detail what are the main aspects which we would think of having in a sort of textile strategy. And a little bit I also explain what we are doing in Germany. Yes, design is key, as Max Gilgenmann already said. It determines quite largely the environmental impacts and throughout the whole life cycle. And for us, clothing should be designed in a way that it is durable and so also reusable, second-hand market, and if not used anymore, recyclable. And there, not the downcycling is what we are thinking of, but the textile to textile, maybe even upcycling. There we have the problem that the clothing today is often made of mixed fibers, and these mixed fibers, as you might all know, are not really fit for recycling. So when it comes to the textile strategy and some measures there and some requirements, we could think of some mandatory requirements addressing that issue. And this is even more important as we will have introduced from 2025 on a separate collection of textiles. And there we will have a massive extension of the secondary material available. If this secondary material is not used for I would say, high-level recycling, then that might not be very well. It's not the intention of this separate collection that you then downcycle the things or even burn. So design also includes fiber selection. Synthetic fibers, as you all know, cause microplastics when they are washed, maybe, but there might be some ideas how to address that. Cotton, I think the cotton used in Germany covers an area of the land of Schleswig-Holstein, just for the cotton used in Germany for 1 year. This is a huge problem, and quite often the irrigation is done in areas where there's water scarcity already. You all know that. So it's also something where we should think of alternative solutions. We launched a study on the impact of alternative fibers, for example, wood-based fibers, which have a potential to at least not having that big environmental impact as cotton has. We see a potential there. Let's see how it will develop and what are the results of our studies. There are some clothings or textiles, also like curtains and so on, with these materials. There's, I think, there could be more potential for that. And of course, secondary materials. We need to use a secondary material. Up to now, only 1% is really used in textiles. Again, that's not a situation we would like to see. I compare it a little bit with the experience we had with plastics in the 90s, where we started our first extended producer responsibility scheme with the so-called Töpferordinanz, Verpackungsverordnung in Germany. There we had the same situation with plastic recycling. And it took quite a while, and it was not that easy to get a grip on that and to get improvement in the situation. We are still in the process of improving that. So here we also have to think of also techniques, how to sort it, how to use the secondary material we will have when the separate collection is starting in 2025. So that's not too far away when you think of building up facilities for using that. So we better start quite soon to do that. The production process. Yes, of course, you all know that the production process is causing not only environmental impacts, but also social impacts. And the production processes are, of course, taking place in not only in our countries, or mainly not in our countries, but in countries where, for example, the monitoring is a little bit differently organized than in our countries, and maybe some of the mandatory requirements regarding environmental impacts and social impacts are not that strict as they are here. So the value chain organization management plays a role, and also the issue of due diligence. We adopted due diligence law for some months ago, and that is, of course, very relevant for the sector. Furthermore, our Ministry for Development Cooperation is running, together with the GIZ, Textile Alliance for some years now, where about 40% of the market is gathering and trying to get more improvement in the value chain regarding, in particular, social issues, but also environmental issues. This is an initiative which also sees some very good improvement, and we are very lucky that a lot of companies are joining in there, even if we could think of even more companies, or the whole market should do that. Circularity, yes, we see that the waste hierarchy, which is in our, for example, circular economy law, should also serve as a basis here for the textile strategy. We need in the textile strategy clear and ambitious targets on collecting, on reuse, and on recycling, and there again not the downcycling. That's necessary in our view. Also, we see the need in the textile sector, but also in others, to avoid the destruction of unsold and new goods. This is the case. This is not very good, and we have addressed that in our new circular economy law, in a ban on destruction of new goods, including a reporting requirement for companies in order to prove what has happened to these goods. We could also think that this is also this regulation done on the European level. We also found, at least in our view, a pragmatic approach on donations regarding the taxation of these donations. Consumer information and awareness. Max Gilgenmann has also addressed the issue. This is a problem. Even in our country, consumers are not, to a large extent, are not that aware on what is happening in the textile sector and what has happened when they are buying a T-shirt for 1 or 2 euros. So this is something we have to, of course, address in schools and in other areas. That's for sure. The market share of sustainable textiles here in our country is still below 5%. This is also something we have to take into account, and we have to change. In the further development of our national program on sustainable consumption, the decision of our Green Cabinet in May this year, we adopted an action plan which includes the target of significantly increasing the market share of certified clothing through credible labeling. So this is something we want to do, and how this could be done, Kristin Stechemesser will show you after my remarks. There are additional support measures needed. Sustainable public procurement is important for that. We got a clear target of 50% sustainable purchase of 50% of sustainable clothing in our action plan, Sustainable Government. We are by far not there yet. One of the problems is the availability of the textiles. There is not enough certified sustainable clothing and other textiles on the market. That's also quite difficult. Still, we think sustainable public procurement has to be used to improve the market situation for sustainable textiles. Transparency is definitely needed throughout the whole process. Therefore, the product passport, which is at the moment already discussed on the European level, in the area of the battery ordinance. This is also an important instrument to be used in the textile chain, which is very complex, and there the digital product passport can bring some more transparency to that, not only for the business sector, but also for consumers and also for the end of life recycling of the textiles. Yes, the market surveillance. Also, market surveillance is an important issue. If you want to have a ambitious level playing field, of course you have to ensure that these things are also put into practice. And market surveillance of textiles, you can imagine that's not easy. But these kind of things have to be ensured from our side, from the government side, not only from the federal level, but also from the state level, so that this is also ensured, and that it's the implementation of the regulations is really done. I know that's easier said than done. Well, these were a lot of aspects, but we have to address them all, otherwise it doesn't work. And I also know that not the government regulation alone can do the job, but we have to rely also on the stakeholders, on the companies, that they are doing that they are willing to do that, and also on supporting innovation, supporting the ones which are maybe only still in a niche market. We want to do that, but we want to talk to you to see how best we can do that, and that's why we are here. So, having said that, I wish us a very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Max. It's my pleasure. And I am here today because I'm within the sustainability corner of this world for 15 years now, and I consider sustainability in general and circularity in particular an imperative meanwhile, and not an extra anymore. And platforms and meetings like those here give a good opportunity to learn on the one hand, to get new inspiration, new information, facts, all the things that are flying around constantly, and secondly, to get into fruitful discussion and dialogue. Hopefully, we will see this later today, on how the still existing hurdles and obstacles could be overcome. Hurdles that I see are really manifold. There are some really linked to our behavior. Each and every marketing story that goes out produces a certain buying behavior, a certain buying pattern with all of us. We are all consumers almost all of the time. And this is something where we are still stuck in the old days, honestly, from my perspective. So something needs to change there to drive different and hopefully more appropriate buying patterns and decisions. Secondly, I think it's a matter of money. So there are a lot of ideas and technologies out there that could help us to embed circularity even more in our way of making business, but they need to be scaled up here and there. So strategic investments are necessary. They are there. It's much better than 5 years back, but still a long way to go. And maybe last but not least, it's still about the availability of materials, recycled materials at a certain scale. So there's a lot out there, as I said already, which works in small laboratory cases, but not each and all on large scale. Oh, I have a positive vision, but it's not about a certain topic in circularity or sustainability. It's rather about the way we are working. So seeing all those people from all of the different angles gathering here, coming together, discussing, gives me a belief that the power of the many can be successful, and this is what we need, I guess.
I'm going to copy what you just said and hand over directly to Kristin Stechemesser, who is going to tell us a little bit about the Blue Angel And to many of us, maybe that doesn't seem very necessary because, at least to us Germans, I think this sign, the Blue Angel, has been like a very familiar companion in responsible consumer decisions. It's, as far as I know, the oldest ecolabel we've got. So Germany was very early on that. It's older than 35 years and has at least been accompanying me through my supermarket experiences ever since. But to hear it about the backgrounds and the journey of this label, I'm going to hand over to you, Kristin Stechemesser. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for the introduction, and also a warm welcome from my side to you. And thanks a lot for the possibility to present the Blue Angel, especially the Blue Angel for textiles. As you already mentioned, it's the oldest eco-label in the world. It was founded for more than 30 years now. And it's a product label, so we focus on the product itself and also on the production process and not on the company level. The Blue Angel is independent and credible, and we are a demanding standard, or we have demanding standards for environmental friendly products and also for services. And therefore we think the Blue Angel is the orientation for sustainable purchasing for consumers, for public procurers, and also for companies. At the moment, the Blue Angel encompasses more than 100 product groups, and one product group is the textile product group. As you can see here, the Blue Angel for textiles, we first developed criteria for around 10 years, and there was a revision in 2016, and currently we also revised criteria for the Blue Angel for textile. But the goals are always the same. So as you can see here, we have 4 goals. One is that the Blue Angel observe high environmental standards in the manufacturing process, that we avoid harmful substances in the end product, and that's really important that we try to ensure high quality, or as you can see here, high usability or fitness for use. And an aspect which was maybe for 10 years not that relevant, but today it's really relevant, that we want to improve occupational safety and social conditions in the manufacturing process. In the following 2 slides, I want to show you some more details about the Blue Angel for textiles. As you can see here, we accept not only natural and classical chemical fibers, we also accept cellulose fibers and recycled fibers. Therefore, it is possible nearly to certify every product in the textile area. For example, the classical textile clothing, but also house and home textiles, functional clothing, bed linen, bedding, and it's also possible to certify only a fiber. That's really important for the B2B or B2B sector. But what are the criteria behind, or the concrete criteria behind the Blue Angel for textiles? As you can imagine, I cannot tell you all criteria at the moment, because we have around 50 criteria at the moment, so it's a big document. But here you can see that we only accept organic cotton, organic wool, and our chemical and other synthetic fibers are proved in regard of chemistry or the chemical input. And with our criteria, we try to avoid substances that are harmful to health and to the environment. So for example, we have strict regulations in regard to flame retardants. We exclude, for example, biocides and softening agents. And we also have strict limits for heavy metals. And I think that's normal today. We're also looking in the production process. Therefore, we have also criteria for wastewater emissions and also air emissions. And as I already mentioned, we have at the moment 9 criteria for the usability in order to ensure a long durability of the product. And we have a certified social standard. But now I want to come to the circular aspects. Circularity is not new for the Blue Angel. There is the Circular Economy Act in Germany. It's an old act, and therefore this act is always important for us. And therefore, yeah, you could also say circular Blue Angel, for example, but of course, circularity is a really big point at the moment during our revision process. And yeah, the tipping points for our revision were as these instruments or these strategies were already mentioned, the Green Deal, the Circular Economy Action Plan, and the EU Strategy for Textiles that are guiding instruments, documents for our revision at the moment. In order to explain it more systematic, I want to use this circle, which was produced by our German environment agencies from my colleagues. And yeah, it's a little bit too right here. It starts with the raw material input. Thank you. It starts with the raw material inputs, the processing of the materials, the design phase, the production phase, logistics, the use phase, and the waste management. Fibers, we also accept recycled fibers, but the most important thing for a product standard is that we not only accept recycled fibers that we have, but also that we have requirements for the fibers, because we want to avoid that comes chemicals or that there is a chemical input into the textile product. That's why it is important to have requirements for the certification of the product. But you have the circle in your mind, and now I want to go step by step to this circle. I only want to highlight some points of our revision, and I already mentioned this recycled input that we focus on this point. And then if we are looking into the design phase, we already heard it's the most important phase in the whole circle, because during this phase we decide about the steps after this design of the product. And therefore, in order to have a durable product, we have several fitness for use criteria. For example, the change in dimensions during washing and drying, fabric resistance to pilling and abrasion. And as I already mentioned, we have at the moment 9 criteria. But we think that's not enough. Therefore, we added now during our revision some more criteria in order to strengthen this topic, durability. But also the point repairability is a very important point for us. But it's not at the moment not really clear how we can handle it, because we are a product label, and so it must be at the end we have to prove it. We have to verify, how will the product be repairable at the end. Then I want to add to this design phase that we also looked how could the product be more reusable and recyclable. And as I already mentioned, we ask for organic cotton and organic wool, but we also have specific limitations for chemicals. And one other thing is that we not allow electronic parts, because that's not good at the end for the recyclability of a product. Then I want to go to the production phase, and that's a little bit similar to the design phase. Here we have several criteria for their chemical input and to limit specific chemicals. Another important phase is the logistics phase. We already heard about it today. And here we recommend to use reusable packaging. And if this is not possible, then we ask for recycled materials of the packaging. It's independent if it's an packaging material made from paper or from plastics. So that's a clear requirement in the Blue Angel criteria. And we are looking now into the use phase. As I already mentioned, the design phase is really important for the use phase. And if there is, or if we have not a durable product, or if we have not designed a durable product, then we cannot use it in a very long during the use phase. And that's why, as I already mentioned, we have the fitness for use criteria, but we also added now more care instructions, so also repairability criteria. I hope that I have showed you how the Blue Angel will become more circular. As I already mentioned, I would say we were circular, or we are circular at the moment with our current criteria, but we will, or the Blue Angel will become more circular in the future. I hope I presented to you the advantages of the Blue Angel. As you can see here, or as I said, we have a really high product variety. We work transparent and are independent. We are an internationally recognized standard, so I would say all countries in the world know the Blue Angel. And for companies that certify the products with the Blue Angel, they have a competitive advantage for the procurement and also in the B2B sector. So that's all from my side. If you have questions to the Blue Angel, please ask. And yeah.
We're not going to let you go, though, because we do want to see that Blue Angel in action now for once. And for this, I want to welcome Ulf Jaeckel back to the stage. And both of you want to share a little celebratory moment with us and present to you a very special brand and project. Real quick, we're going to get you a second microphone so you can move freely, and then please take it from here.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have the honor to, or I have the pleasure, or we have the pleasure to hand over a new certificate for the Blue Angel for the German company Derbe, and their T-shirts and dress you can see over there, not at the back, but over there. And these T-shirts and dresses for men, women, and children are meeting the requirements of the Blue Angel, and we are very happy that Derbe has applied for the Blue Angel and then now can get the certificate. And please, Ms. Baumgarten and her colleagues, please come up to the stage so I can hand over the Blue Angel. So it's a great pleasure, and if you want to say more about your company, you are free to do that.
I'm not supposed to say anything. I think it's fine like this. So thanks a lot for supporting us, for forcing us to go the way. It was a long and hard way, but finally we made it, and we're really proud. And looking forward to the future for the Blue Angel.
Thank you very much.
Stick around for 1 second until this man is happy with his picture. This big worthy moment. Walk through the picture again, sorry. Beginner's mistake. So yeah, as you're not supposed to say anything, we're going to round this up with a big round of applause, and congratulations to you to this final certification. We're very proud to have you. Do you want to say a quick thing about what you're showing there?
It's just a small range of T-shirts. We're having about 40 or 50 styles per season, and all certified. And we're a bit edgy, really Nordic themes, distributing Germany, Netherlands, Austria, and yeah, quite successful, happy, edgy, and yeah, certified.
I think the biggest hurdle is that by 2025 there is a certain demand from the legislative, and the industry is not there yet. So we are missing possibilities on recycling options on one hand, and on the other hand I think the industry is not clear in how clean does materials need to be in the future to be circular. Or to fulfill the circularity needs. I think I have a very bright vision because we with our brands are at the moment in the transition, and I think it is important to go or to take the little steps from conventional garments to more sustainable garments. And every little step you take supports a better future, and I think this is our aim, and that's a good spirit to work for. Yeah.
Again later on for the Q&A, thanks for leaving the microphone. And you're probably already aware that Derbe is doing something that we call Tiefstapling in Germany, so I warmly recommend you to take the chance and ask more about their work and see what they do while doing the breaks later on. Well, but to round up this part of the day with what we call inspirational talks, and which I very much hope works as well for you as for me, we want to change perspective once again and go from a German eco-label to an international perspective, and I want to switch to a policy advisor's perspective. Well, maybe it's two perspectives because I'm going to leave this spot to both Jenny Montanus, and I have to read this out again because you all have so long positions. She's policy advisor on circular economy at the Ministry of Infrastructure and Watermanagement of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and to Arnoud Passenier, strategic international advisor on circular economy. That's your spot.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure for us to discuss today with you what we have done until now with creating a policy on circular textiles, but also discuss the future. And I think that is needed much. Important to come together to see opportunities to meet the three planetary challenges. Ulf Jaeckel talked already about it. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution worldwide are challenging us, producers, consumers, retailers, but also the government to change our habits. In the end, circular economy is not about materials, but about our habits. We have to change. Therefore, we should go after resource efficiency, after recycling of materials, because the concept of circular economy, as mentioned before, is much more than about those materials. We can do a lot with what we call narrowing the loop, with reduction of use, of reuse of products, but also about slowing the loop, repairing, repurposing the materials and the products as we face them in the waste phase. And in the end, of course, also about closing the loop. And we learned the last couple of years it's not enough to recycle, but also think further how to upcycle, how to reuse the materials recycled again in new products. And therefore, we learned in the last couple of years that we should focus much more on quality, about quality of processing, about quality of collection, sorting, about quality in design, in order to close the loop, and to look at it as a value retention, which is much more important than, well, get rid of our discarded products and materials. So focus on circularity on design. That's key to the Circular Economy program, which we launched in 2016, with several topics, not only focusing on consumer goods and textiles, but also on building materials, about manufacturing industries, about plastics, of course, and biomass and food. So it's a really broad program which we launched together with not only the Ministry of Environment, but also the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Internal Affairs, Agriculture, and so it's a really broad and supported program in the Netherlands. And of all of the, we call it 10 R strategies, so refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, refurbish, etc. So there are, in our concept, we have 10 R's, but that means that shows that it's a really broad a strategy where we can use several incentives to get it right. But still, we are in the beginning of the phase of the circular economy. So, as the ambassador said, well, sometimes we say that we are a front runner in circular economy, but I personally feel that we just started and we have to do more to narrow the loop, to slow the loop, and to close the loop. So a bit modest we should be. And therefore, also a lot, not only we need a lot of regulations. I don't know if we are a Wild West in textiles, but for sure I think that the industry needs also regulations, frameworks within which can be invested in new innovations. And talking about innovations, I think that's one key element in our policies that we would like to work with the industry to accelerate the process of innovations coming to the market, and that's something typical which we learned is how to create a lot of energy, trust. Mutual trust between the companies, but also between companies and the government, to move further and to accelerate innovations. I think that is really key to the policy we envision, but also execute at this moment. That's why it's also so important. Innovation and partnership is key to the circular economy. That we come together now to see how we can strengthen each other, work together in value chains, cross borders, and look for also in a pre-competitive way what we can do together. But to move back to our policies in the Netherlands and what we already drafted with not only a transition agenda on consumer goods, but also on textiles in particular. I will would like to give the floor to Jenny, my colleague, who is responsible for some key issues within that policy, and she is happy to share with us what we drafted and how we are working on it. Yes.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I am a little bit cold, and also my watch told me it was time to get moving, so I will just give you a quick opportunity if you feel like it to raise and just move a little bit. I really need it, so I'm going to do it anyway. So if you feel like it, please raise and just move around get a bit warmer. For me, it was necessary. Yeah? Okay, let's start. Let's see. Yes, so thank you so much. I have the honor to talk a little bit about our own policy program on circular textiles, and I will tell you the story of how it emerged. So back in 2016, I was already working in this team, and the recycling industry actually really had a hard time keeping their heads above the water. It had to do for a part with Africa. They used to get it to Africa, but they nowadays are getting their cheap textiles from China, so there was no opportunity anymore. And also we are consuming or using so much textiles that the amount of waste gets higher every year. So for us it was clear there was a problem. And at that time we also got some questions from parliaments. And we had no policy program whatsoever about textiles, so we needed to do something. And luckily we got political support, and our plans were enthusiastically welcomed by parliament. So we started writing this program. We started to challenge the trade associations or the trade organizations to formulate their vision and their ideas for a sustainable future of textiles. And in 2018, the trade organizations came up with their sector plan. They finished it and handed it over to our former Minister for the Environment, Dientje van Veldhoven. You can see that in this picture. And we also talked with a lot of companies, a lot of other people from the sector, recyclers, producers, also representatives of municipalities, and so on. And with all this information as a basis, we started to write the program, our own national policy program. So we really wanted to make an ambitious program, as you can see. And they were also just mentioned by the ambassador. We have some ambitious goals here. In the program, we address all phases of the value chain, as you can see on the left side. Let's see. No, still this. So in the design and the production phase, that is really about reducing the ecological footprint of textiles brought to the market. It's about, of course, natural fibers, about recycled fibers, but also about innovations in the finishing and coloring, so the dyeing of the textiles. One of the innovations we can learn from is of the Dutch company Daiku. They bleach with CO2. That's an example of an innovation. And also we think that extended producer responsibility is a really cool instrument here to accelerate better design and production. And also product requirements on an EU level are important here. In the purchase and use phase, it's really about raising consumer awareness. So it's about this harmonized labeling system we would really like to see. It's about circular public procurement. It's also, really about making consumers take good care of their clothing, like with the washing, but also use your clothes longer. Well, we all know we probably do that, but anybody should do that. And the final phase is the disposal phase, of course. This is about more and better collection and sorting of textiles, and also better recycling, of course, and also about upscaling innovations here. One can think of the fiber sort machine. That is one machine in the Netherlands, and technology that automatically sorts large volumes of mixed post-consumer textiles per fiber type or per color. And of course, one can also think of chemical recycling. For example, by Saxel, they recycle cotton to cellulose fibers. And also here, the denim deal is an example of international cooperation that really helps in this phase. And in a couple of minutes, Arnoud will tell you more about it. First, I wanted to tell something about European textile strategy. You heard something about it in the previous previous talks. We very much welcome, of course, this European textile strategy, or at least the plans for it, because the industry is really helped with. We believe they are really helped with a harmonized regulation in all of Europe, and also this will help create a level playing field for all companies. So at the turn of the year 2020-2021, we wrote a non-paper. So that's a paper with our ideas for this European textile strategy. And in this year, we also wrote, together with 10 other countries, our joint paper, also about this European textile strategy, and we sent it, of course, to the Commission. And in these papers, we highlighted a couple of topics that we think are important. You can read them on the slides, and I will highlight 3 of them. Let me see. So the first one is the extended producer responsibility, a mandatory and harmonized extended producer responsibility. We think with this you really create the right incentives for business to cover the cost of collection and sorting and recycling. One harmonized market will be created, and well, it probably will take a couple of years, so we cannot wait for that. So as a result, in the Netherlands, we are now developing our own national EPR scheme. And in this EPR scheme, we include targets for reuse and high-quality recycling, which is quite new, since in other EPR systems, it's more about the collection. That's it. So we really want to make the best of it and use it as an innovative instrument to really help the sector. There are some challenges, of course. We are still thinking about, for example, what products will we include in this? Is it only about clothing, or should it also be about household textiles, shoes maybe, curtains, blankets? Where do you stop? So that are things we're thinking about right now. And also, one of the challenges is about e-commerce. So will there be undermining activities, for example, from continents or companies outside of Europe? And if so, what can we do about it? So we are thinking of working with obligatory authorized persons. So you need, as a company from outside of Europe, to assign some person that is within the Netherlands to represent you. Or maybe that is not okay because it will harm the free market or will not be in line with some rules. So that's still, that are still challenges. Another important subjects are the product requirements. According to the principles of eco-design, we would love to see a mandatory percentage of recycled content in each new textile product, because this will greatly boost the market for recycled textiles. And the challenge, of course, is how to set the right percentage of recycled content, and also how to get this material back to the manufacturers. And thirdly, we think of a mandatory labeling system, because that could really help creating transparency and consumer awareness. And we are here thinking of a very simple model, more like a traffic light model, or the energy label, for example. So you can think of 3 colors, red, orange, and green. So for consumers, it will be really easy to see whether a product is good or not. So therefore, we have asked the European Commission to conduct a research into the possibilities for such a mandatory labeling system. And here, of course, the challenge is about transparency. And there are also many existing labels. For example, the Blue Angel seems very nice, but we think it should be applied in all of Europe. So we know as consumers from other countries, and we come here what to buy, or we visit another country, and there's so many labels, and you just don't know what's true, what you should believe. So we feel like one harmonized label would be of great help. And finally, I would like to stress that we seek for alignment with social aspects. So like mandatory human rights, due diligence, a livable wage, and good label conditions. It makes perfect sense to combine the social and environmental dimension, because companies themselves, you just talked about it, so you all know about it. You do no difference in the supply chain. And the challenge is, of course, how can we make impacts on both the social and the physical aspects in the value chain in the very smartest way. And now Arnoud will take over again to highlight just that, because we have the challenge to address the issues, but how can we work together as governments and as companies across the globe? Arnoud?
It's only a few minutes, yes, so there are a lot of instruments which we are developing, but to see from a company perspective, you see that you work along the supply chain around the world, and not everywhere are the same systems and regulations in place. So how to do that? And I think that thinking about that supply chain, you can do a lot in working together and innovating together. If you understand how the spinners, the manufacturers work and what challenges they have to improve circularity in their production, and you are in dialogue with them, it's easier to see what we can do together. And if the demand pool of circularity is coming from the big brands, but also the small brands, you see that production countries in the world can change their production as well. And it's not about getting back the whole production of textiles in Europe. I don't think that is reasonable. It's also not very sensible to do if those countries need for businesses and jobs as well. So for that, it's very necessary to do an outreach along the value chain with those companies. And we started in 2018 after a visit of our Prime Minister and our Minister for the Environment in the House of Denim in Amsterdam, sort of a denim hub in the world. And they were really inspired by young designers on what is going on in the denim industry and what opportunities there are to be much more sustainable. Yes, we started to discuss what we can do together between the local authorities, central government, and the businesses along the value chain. So not only the brands and the retailers, but also the collection and sorting and recycling businesses. We came together and said, well, maybe we should set some targets, but at the same time, it's also about a journey, an adventure. So what can we do in a voluntary way to make bold steps in the future to see how we can start with the recycled content in our products, in the denim garments in general, in some denim jeans in particular. So 5%, and that was the question of the denim industry in Turkey. They said, well, we are able to present to you post-consumer recycled content in denim fabrics, but please be clear, and we want to have a standard, and let's start with a standard of 5% recycled cotton in new denim, and that we wrote down and said, well, we start with 5%, but we will aim for higher, of course, in the end. And with the denim jeans, we said, well, maybe we should start with a higher percentage of 20% recycled material for 3 million pair of jeans. Just a start. And what we saw was that several brands already reached that some of those targets within a year. And they are improving the process together with the manufacturers and the refibers in Turkey. And the interesting idea was that we saw that at the same time, other brands and other production companies in other countries joined us. So we have now a production company out from Pakistan, production companies from Spain. So you see that there is a sort of oil, how do you call it? Oil spill or something like that. It's spreading around the world. And we get several questions from embassies out of all those production countries, also Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, who are really interested in seeing to join this movement. And I think that's an example of how we can work together. And also the German brands, if you want to join the denim deal, please feel free to call me, and I think that's the way forward to accelerate the process of getting circular and starting with PCR cotton. But at the same time, we know that on other issues as water, energy use, other materials, maybe we could learn from each other as well. But we started with this process, and well, within a year, there's a lot of dynamics going on. So I wish to share this experience with you, and hopefully we can join together to accelerate that process much more. Thank you.
So I'm here because I really do believe in collaboration and in speaking to many different people that are representing not only the consumers, the actual industry, but also from the government side. And I think we all need to come together to discuss, but mostly have an action plan on this. I'm here also today because I'm representing more the consumer side. I think at the moment we need to bring the consumer also into this conversation more. They are there as individuals, not knowing what is it that they can do, and if they can do something to be involved into this transformation that is happening and that we are all trying to do together. So I think that it's also going to be a very important challenge on how do we really bring consumers to make the shift together with all of us. Also, as a representative of this, we actually just launched our app with Renoon, and we're seeing a really great response from the communities. We're focusing in the Netherlands, but we're bringing together also people that have their own influence on what they do, and we're seeing really great responses. For example, we have a Windsor that is taking part of our app. And we have people that are also very known in this community of sustainability, but also have an influence with the actual consumers. So I think this is really great because it means that we have the representation, but also a way for consumers to see, I want to be part of this. So I'm really, really hopeful that we can make this.
And I'm also going to ask Ulf Jaeckel and Kristin Stechemesser to join us here, because before I present my new invention, hot tea in a glass hand warmer, to you and leave you all to a lunch break, we want to take maybe about 10 minutes just for a quick exchange of ideas and questions that might have come up during all of this these talks we've just heard. And to me, at least, it feels like we've taken like a walk around the topics of all goods, taking in different perspectives for now. And yeah, Marte is going to have the other microphone. So please make yourself noticeable if you want to add, first of all, an idea, maybe a question, maybe a clarification on what we've heard from all of you that you want to take into the workshops. And as your housekeeper, I'm going to say 4 things about that. First of all, please make yourself noticeable. If you're already cold, you can jump up and down to do so, or easier, just raise your hand. Secondly, I am aware that all of you have a lot to say, and you will have the opportunity in a second, but still I take the ungrateful task of limiting your airtime to maximum 1 minute, so we have time to raise a lot of topics. And then again, after the lunch break, I'm going to introduce properly, not only as a microphone stand, Marte and Ariana and Max to you, who are going to be your facilitators and messengers for the workshops. If any of you 3 feels that whatever we hear now is better in the workshops or will have place there, please steal the topic from us. So you have to jump up and down then. So please make yourself noticeable, and we're going to take that aspect right into the workshops and not leave it here. And last but not least, please use the microphone. I know the room is small and it's tempting not to use it, but we want you in the live stream to be able to follow and also to have your point in the documentation. So point out to Marte. And if you're not fast enough, no, you are. So I was hoping to get the first question, but I'm not. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to you then.
So thank you all. I'm Thomas Tochtermann. I'm working with a couple of institutions around the world on the topic of sustainable fashion. A question to Kristin and Jenny. You talked about labeling, and you talked about sort of defining a standard for labels. One of the big issues that we have today is the fabric hierarchy. I mean, what's actually a sustainable fabric and what not? It sounds wonderful to have organic cotton. If I look at the water footprint of cotton, sort of, I'm not sure that we should have cotton on any sustainable list. Recycling, we have recycled plastic at this point in time. The only thing that we do is we're stealing sort of plastic bottles away from the consumer goods industry at this point in time and using it in a way that we shouldn't. Wonderful to achieve certain recycling standards. How do you want to deal with that in the future?
Yeah, the Blue Angel, or the aim of the Blue Angel, is that we certify around 20 to 30% of the market of textiles or other product groups. And therefore, for us, it's necessary that it's possible to certify all fibers. But we have criteria for the fibers, and you are right, at the moment, that's why we have not mandatory limit for recycled fibers, because we have the same opinion as you have. That's at the moment it's not normal, or it's not easy to have recycled fibers. That's why yeah, we know others have a specific, it have to be 30% of the fiber recycled. We say that's at the moment not possible, because we don't want to support to produce plastic bottles at the moment. So we heard about it, that only some bottles are produced for the textile industry. So that's not our goal. But yeah, to the core point of your questions, I would say with our label we have not a real solution. We think for some consumers, but also for the public area, it's necessary to have a cotton product, or they want to have one. That's why we don't want to exclude cotton, but we say it has to be organic cotton. So that's, for the moment, our solution. We try to have the best environmental fiber in this fiber area, so for cotton fiber or synthetic fibers. Also for the cellulose fibers, so we have also strict criteria, because we think some cellulose fibers are not really environmentally friendly produced at the moment. So we think we accept all fibers, but we have for every fiber strict requirements.
Jenny, do you want to follow up?
Yes,
Yes, thank you. So we are also very familiar with this problem and how to compare, for example, synthetic fibers with natural fibers, how to compare what is scarcity with microplastics. So we also don't know how to do that. So but we think you should do something. Just because you not know how to perfectly compare, you should do something, because now there's also so many textiles out in the market that are not even aware of their own water scarcity or microplastic, etc. So you should do something, and we ask therefore the European Commission to conduct research. So just start thinking about it. And I'm also, I'm not in this session, but I think my colleagues will be very interested to hear in the session later on your thoughts and ideas about how to compare, how to create such a label, what to do, and also what to do not. So yeah, that's for me.
Thank you. More questions?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Pascal Betten. I represent the CEO of Interloop Europe. Interloop is a Pakistani manufacturer of socks and denim. So that's one of the countries which is, well, growing.
Who has his number then?
Sorry.
So you do have his
It's
number?
one of the numbers, yeah. We already work together now. But I have a question, or an addition to your question, actually, because the main material of our products is cotton. And when we worked on sustainable products, and in this case we have a cradle-to-cradle certified sock collection, we had the issue that it's 90% cotton. And we thought, how sustainable is that? And then the certifying body said, well, sustainability, you have to start somewhere. So even if you start being sustainable with cotton, your challenge should be in the future to become sustainable with other products as well. So instead of ignoring cotton as a main material, we said let's use it and make it as sustainable as we can. And so maybe that's part of an addition to your questions, but I understand.
There's no sustainable product, there's just a more sustainable
Absolutely,
product.
absolutely. And I think this is not the end, it's just the beginning. So. The second point, if I may, sorry, is the minute over?
Not quite, but almost.
Otherwise, you will stop me anyway. The question to Frau Stechemesser and Jenny is: we are cradle-to-cradle certified, which is fine. What would be the difference between Blue Angel and C2C certified? I'm not aware of Blue Angel, sorry about that, so I was very poorly prepared.
But it was a short question, thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to start the other way around, or do you want to go to Blue Angel right away?
It's not only 1 minute.
There's Ariana stealing the one. Thanks a lot. Mate, back there?
No, not yet. Yes, no. So hello everyone. My name is Iris. I'm the CEO of Arnoud. We're an Amsterdam-based startup that is bringing together consumers to actually have a voice in this and creating a community. We have an app that just launched to make them easy for consumers to find products and brands. My question, which is very interesting about labels and also probably useful for the session also afterwards, for Jenny. When it comes to labeling, what are the elements that you consider and you have considered as mandatory? So is it only the composition, the materials? What is the elements inside of the labeling, if you can go deeper into that?
Thank you. Well, actually, we have not really defined what elements should be in there. So it's really, we are asking the European Commission to conduct this research and tell us about what should be in it, but it makes common sense that it is about reducing the ecological footprint. So it is about water, it's about land usage, it is about microplastics, it is, I can go on. So it's about a whole bunch, and you told me yesterday, of course, about your company. It's also, I think it's about all those elements you're also looking into, but how to make how to decide what is more important, or that is really the tricky part that we do not have an opinion about yet.
Arnoud, you're moving.
Yes, I think we are in the middle of a transition towards the circular economy. So we have to acknowledge that we don't know a lot. Just starting with innovation, starting with reducing our ecological footprint is okay. But to discard a lot of innovations because they are not sustainable enough, I think that's the wrong direction. We should embrace all steps towards circularity, and of course knowing that with that step we will find out much more about the fabrics, about the possibilities of new technology, about new logistical concepts, etc. So I would like to warn ourselves as a community that the transition towards the circular economy is long, and we have to be patient and at the same time respectful to every attempt to be more circular and more sustainable.
I think we can take one more.
Good morning, I'm Gilgenmann from the Holy Fashion Group, and I think it's really, really important to consider next steps, and circularity is really a huge buzzword. But let's consider, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is like a big number, like 60 million tons of fabrics or yarns and fibers are in use currently for the European garment sector, and only 1% is based on recycled materials. And to get into this circularity, saying that we really end up in the long run, that we really want to recycle post-consumer garments, I think we need to consider how do we develop consumer garments in the future. Do we need to find a scale system to separate fibers so that we really enhance and motivate brands and retailers to go in pure fibers again, because we all know Anne MacArthur story about the elastane and denim story, and I think we are missing at least 4 huge factories in Europe to recreate the elastane or separate the elastane from the denim, but there we are talking about 2 ingredients only. It's the cotton-based denim and the elastane. But looking around here, I think we have fiber combinations of 3, 4, 5 blended fibers, and there is no solution available. So it's nice to have the idea of circularity, but I think we really need to build up a system where we get into a separation in the development stage, and then in the long run we can easily sort like glass bottles, green glass, white glass, brown glass, and then you have like 1 fiber, 2 fiber, 3 fiber, or maybe an ample system, and then you can come over education and the consumer knows. Okay, I'm finished with the time. But I think this is something what we really need to consider further to build a valid system.
Thank you so much, and I wouldn't have cut you short if I didn't know that we have hours to discuss this, and I can't believe I don't see the facilitators jumping here. Does anyone of you want to go directly to that point?
Yes, I also fully support, and it's a bit like in the plastic area in the 90s, where we didn't have the solution for what to do with the recycled plastic, and still we are facing difficulties because yes, there are many solutions. One solution could be a requirement for a quota of monomaterials. It's just a thought, but it could be. The other one could also be working at the end. Is it possible, and is it feasible, and it is also, I would say, affordable to separate the fibers in a garment, in a textile. So that's, I frankly don't know. There are techniques out there, but is it really affordable? If you look at the plastic sorting, for example, in sorting plants, these kind of plastic packaging is with 35 kilometers an hour is running through the system, and therefore you have these non-identified plastics in areas of 10, 15, 20%. So yeah, So, and it's just because of the financial cost of this. And yeah, let's see how this is. There is not really experience so far, but yes, when we have in 2025 the huge amount of sorted and collected textiles, we have to have a solution by that.
If I may jump in here, and this question, very brief, actually relates to what you just said, and this is to all of you, probably not easy to answer in short, but I wanted to address that because it's probably an interesting side note that we can also take into the workshops later on. Ulf, you said in your presentation that circular fashion companies or pioneers are not yet rewarded by the market, but there's a pretty powerful, let's say, playing field that you have in your hands, which is public procurement. So is there, can you probably share briefly a couple of ideas how to use this powerful tool to actually dynamize this transition?
So that's Marte Henschel from Sketch,
sorry.
now famous for raising big questions for short answers. We're going to make this a quick round with all of you four, and I'm starting at my left side.
Okay. Yes, we started just small, but very visible by getting the circular clothing for our chauffeurs in the ministry, as an example of how we can do it. The Ministry of Defense is circulating the garments and the fibers into their new clothing, and they did it, and they earn money with it. So there are really good examples where we do it and where we scale it up. So that are really good examples of what we can do with circular procurement.
We published at the beginning of the year guidelines for sustainable textile purchasing. So these guidelines should be used by all national procurers, but the focus is not on circularity. So we started with the basic Blauer Engel criteria, so that for example, the products are more durable, that there are not that much chemical input. But in the next step, we want to revise these guidelines and focusing on circular aspects. But yeah, if our procurers at the national level use these guidelines, so we become more circular.
Yeah, we have the target in our Sustainable Development Government Action Plan. Still, it's not that, it's still an eternal discussion and a big discussion. The public procurers are maybe not the most innovative species on this earth, and we are still in the process of convincing them, in particular the bigger procuring agencies, that these kind of textiles have to be procured. But as I said, it's also a little bit of a chicken and egg problem that some of the materials are not really there, not certified.
Yeah, so Arnoud just gave a very nice example of the public procurement for the chauffeurs. Chauffeurs, is that English? Okay. But also in our national policy program, we have set a target for public procurements, for the circular textile public procurements. So there's also really an ambition and goal in this program. So I think it's a very cool instrument that really can also help, and you should also set the right example to practice what you preach. So I think it's really important.
Thomas Tochtermann once again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I know I'm not popular sort of because you want to move to lunch, but I would like
I still like you though.
Get back to Arnaud and your point about patience. So that we have to go slowly into the circular economy. So that's it sounds like you have to be very patient. I actually disagree here. Sort of, I'm working with global fashion companies for the last 10 years, and I'm running out of patience. I think so that there's a unique opportunity of the regulator to move a completely unregulated industry to a much more regulated one, but you need to have a clear vision where you want to. I know there are a lot of discussions with stakeholders, Ulf, so that we've talked about that. I think there is something, but I expect actually from the regulator in the national and international in Europe sort of much more guidance and a much stronger push towards the circular economy, because otherwise this will not happen. The consumer has no orientation. There are no labels that give orientations at this point in time. And she doesn't know what to buy and what to buy, not to buy, and the industry doesn't get it sort of by themselves sort of fast enough, sort of with the goals of 2050, 2030, 2025. So you need to put up the pressure from a regulator side. I want to change a bit the spirit to the discussion in the afternoon.
I like you even more now, because what a cliffhanger that was. I'm not going to give you, the opportunity to answer, because... No, that's perfect, because stakeholders running out of patience is exactly what we need to get working. Throughout the lunch break, I don't see you not talking about textile industry during the break, and also in the workshop sessions. I'm going to say thank you to the four of you now for your talks and for your inputs and inspiration this morning. I'm going to say goodbye to the streaming audience here, because sadly we can't feed you lunch. Maybe our colleague is kind enough to turn the camera around to show you the Berlin view, to say goodbye to you today. And we're going to show you the contact of Reiskönig, who is going to be your contact. And please be in touch if you have any ideas, additions, if you're running out of patience, or if you found the 11th R, let us know. And all of you, we're going to take your chairs from you now, so in order to warm you up, in order to get you some lunch. And in 45 minutes, so at 12:50 sharp, we're going to meet again here to give you a heads up on what the workshops are all about. See you in a minute then. Thank you.